My name's William Pym. I'm an art, graphics and photography teacher at the Queen Elizabeth High School, which is a school in Hexham, Northumberland. And my role is very much a classroom teacher, but I also run an arts award programme and various other creative activities. So the school's tried to be really supportive, but there's no doubt that we're up against what everyone's been up against in lockdown, which is not easily being able to have face-to-face contact with students, which is what they need most. I guess for our art department, it's been really important that they have resources. So we have tried for those working digitally, to get software that they can get free. They don't have to download on their computers, creative software that they can continue to design on. And that's been extraordinary. Some of the things that they've produced, learning software without really any help, amazing. We've also, for students who wanted to, delivered, little baskets of stuff out to students in our quite rural area. Some have been able to come in and pick things up, and we know that they've had a fantastic response. Some kids were sent a little package of fabrics for their textile GCSE, and just opening that in lockdown, it's been fantastic, I think, for them to have it. But whatever we did, we can't say that it was enough, and there are many students out there that no doubt we haven't been able to get them what they wanted, and obviously that's one of the sadnesses of trying to be creative here under lockdown. So we've had to vary our approach a little bit. For students who in the younger years, we're a high school, so that's 9 and 10, between those in 11 and 13 who are fitting for exams. I mean, the uncertainty of not knowing what would be assessed or what wouldn't be assessed meant that we've had to try and keep those students working at their personal investigations, and that's been one plus, is that the personal investigation is a project that they have to work slightly independently on. So encouraging them that the creativity can come even under great restraint. So you haven't got everything you want, but you can still do amazing things. For the younger years, the regularity of live teaching has helped. And actually it's been, one hastens not to say this, but actually been some enjoyable things as a teacher. The ability to set up a visualizer, which we haven't usually used much in the past, and then just drawn along, done the task with them. They can watch you doing it. And the kind of sense of, well, communion really is the sense is that they're working, you're working, and it creates the working atmosphere that you would have got in the art department, but in a way something different, and for some students better, if they don't have their neighbours poking them or saying the wrong thing. They've got their own workspace, and I know that's not true for everyone, but it means that we've done things differently, and I think trying to create a creative atmosphere for those who can access the live learning has been really important. We've had to be innovative on interaction and feedback. So we have been doing some online crits where students post their pictures into the chats alongside their Teams talker, and then we've asked them to question it and carry, talking about their motivations, what they're trying to do with the piece of work, or giving them practical feedback. And this became so sort of part of what we do, that it was one wonderful time when, well, not wonderful, because I lost my internet connection, and as a result of that wasn't dropped out of the meeting. But when I came back to the meeting, they just carried on posting their work, carried on talking about it. And I think that desire to still be part of a creative community, that means that they've used these tools, not always as effectively as we want, but they've done amazing stuff, and I think that's incredible. So we've done lots of different visual art projects and in different ways. For those who are carrying on independently, it's been very much about setting them individual targets. And in many ways, we've adapted what we would normally teach for the other year groups into things. So the year 12s, for instance, have worked on a project called Transpose, where they have taken photographs or famous masterpieces and then taken their own photography to augment it, change change the meaning of it. So we've had lots of dogs dressed as girl with pearl earring, and similar. And some of those have got incredibly creative, and so those have been great fun. They're actually doing a project now, the Year 12 photographers, called Making It Up, which is about creating alternative realities, really, either by taking photography or using Photoshop to do that. And I think that's been some interesting conversations about how need to make alternative realities for ourselves positive, and maybe visualize the negative ones as well. There's been that, and then there's been, in year 10 art, concentrating on collaging. We know that not all students have got even basic art materials, so collaging, what can you do with the materials around you, from things as simple as making a color wheel to reinforce color information, to making much more sophisticated designs of their own nature. So the projects have been the same. We're covering the same sorts of things. We don't want this to be the group that have to reinvent their education exactly. We want these to be the group that are even more independent and creative, taking the tasks, adapting them a little bit, and finding new connections. So yeah, we keep experimenting, we keep finding new stuff. I mean, the Teams platform that we use is incredibly creative. You can do lots of things. We're finding out, putting people in individual breakout rooms and all sorts of things, and that's proved really interesting, that kids can actually work together on things, and they've really missed that. So that's been really important. Creatively, we've looked at lots of different photo apps and digital editing apps. So the one we used was Pixlr. It was, it wasn't the most creative, but it was one they can all access, and it's been really nice for them seeing us learn it at the same time as them. So I don't really know how to do this, but let's find out. I'm showing it on my sharing my screen, and they can see you sort of adapting to this as well. And I hope that's given them more confidence to kind of crack things. And they've certainly taken some of these apps and whatever much further than I would have in the time that they've been given. So lots of possibilities there. We've used Instagram to keep in touch, set extensions, persuade everyone to join in Grace and Perry's art club, so they feel part of a bigger picture too. And we've had a really nice landscape photography competition, in which, for pastoral reasons, we wanted students to get out a bit more, not spend all their time in front of the thing. So we tricked them into doing a landscape photography that had to be photographed by going out for a walk. And we had some lovely emails from parents saying that was a really good one. We saw what you were trying to do there, and they were appreciative. And made great results from the students as ever. It's a bit like furlough. So if you're furloughed, there are some adults, parents, who are really worried about, will they have a job to come back to? And in the end, the students have had exactly the same thing. Their whole life has been not hopefully completely obsessed, but it's been very directed towards these exams. And then they were told they were cancelled, and we've had to wait ages and ages for any information about what would replace it or how that would be assessed. And so with the amount of anxious but very rational questions, why should I do this? What is it? Is it worth doing this? Is this more important than that? And we have to keep giving back the answer, we don't know, we're not sure, and so forth. And just now, as we record this, it's just clarifying in the next few days, and we're working out timescales, how they can deliver the work so that it can be comparatively assessed and their hard work rewarded by grades. But I can't underestimate how tricky that's been for us as teachers, but what it is like for them is that incredible uncertainty. School for its good sides and its bad sides both run on certainties, and therefore, it's really that taking that away from them has been a real knock. But I do want to keep saying the positive is it's amazing what most students have done. Continue to carry on work, continuing to believe in their projects, continuing to be independent. It's amazing. But there are a substantial number for whom they won't get anywhere near where they could have done as a result of this. And that will forever be a sadness as a teacher, that they'll leave your classroom without, you then fully taking on the experience that they should have had. Been really struck by the number of young people applying for foundation and art college. So we've got 19 students, and we know that. Normally, don't normally know that in so much detail because we've set up a special group for helping them to develop portfolios. And again, it's been sad because normally they're a bit more independent about it, but obviously been much more worried about what a portfolio should look like and how to do it digitally, how to prepare for an interview and so forth. But again, really confident that actually that they are turning their uncertainties, being offered a place, seeing that there's a future, that there is an onward travel to their art career, makes it really hopeful for them, and so hopefully those 19 will come through and get the places they deserve. The biggest challenge in the pandemic has definitely been keeping track of students' progress. I think the teachers surprised us. We've surprised ourselves by how we managed to flip into online learning without any real experience of it. We adopted the team system, all of that. I think it's been very stressful, but we've done it. I think for this thing, it's finding out what students are really learning from the experience. So you can see the good ones or the ones that are really able to latch hold of the information. They're responding with good responses, but it's the ones that are not responding, that tracking them, getting in contact with them, helping them and providing them with what they need to make progress, that's very hard. And I think what we have seen is a widening out. So the ones who've done well have done very, very well, and not necessarily only top students. Some who maybe not right at the top have done incredibly well under lockdown, but there are also lots of people who haven't. And it's tracking those and helping them that's been the real problem. I think we've learned an enormous amount from online learning, and I think we won't lose it all. Certainly, as a department, it's actually not. Although we will always want to look at the sketchbooks and open them and hold them and see them, actually, the convenience of having students put up photographs of their work so they can get quick responses and things like that is really good. That in exchange means that you can also exchange with others. You can put it up on the screen and show other students. So a lot of that digital exchange aids visual communication. But the flip side, of course, is that it's reinforced that being in the same room, looking at a sketchbook, standing over a student's shoulder, or even bending down to look at it with a pencil and saying, this is where you need to draw this, this is what, I think this could be so good. And the natural exchange of ideas. What has dried up, sadly, has been the verbal communication, and now prefer to just type their answers. And that's not a rich interaction. I'm really glad that we're coming back into the classroom. I think it has reinforced our own importance, and without being too much of a kind of a proud teacher, it actually is so important for them to be in with a teacher. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what subject, but particularly our creative subjects. The exchange of praise, the looking at things together, the sharing, all of that is just so important. So I think we'll reinforce that. We'll continue with the digital streams. It's a digital world we live in, and the ability, I think, to bring in people into the classroom. we don't need to be with us. We can bring in top experts, artists, all sorts into our classroom, and we're going to do more of that, I think. Now we know how easy that is. So lots of things to think about. But right now we're in the middle of We've flipped to online learning. We're about to flip back into the classroom. So we'll get that done before we, I think, make too many conclusions about where the long term lies.